Welcome to the Writer's Craft here on Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. This week I am celebrating the publication of my third novel, And So It Begins. This is a thrilling tale taking you back to the dark days of 1999 when Isaac Shepard was a young sailor. He's insecure, uncertain, and facing down a murderer who's stalking the sailors around Rota, Spain. It also details the beginning of his remarkable friendship and partnership with NCIS Special Agent Abraham Gray. If you're interested, it is available on Amazon in ebook and paperback format. But writing a prequel brought up a lot of interesting challenges for me. The biggest one being, how do I keep these characters consistent so the 1999 versions of them will match up with the versions you've met in 2016 and 2017 in my first two novels, Proudline and The Norfolk Murders. Now, let me define a term here for you. Character consistency does not mean character stagnation. It does not mean the characters are not growing, changing, and evolving. What it means is that as the characters grow, change, and evolve, they are still recognizable as who they are, just like us in the real world. And So It Begins opens in 2018 with Isaac Shepard, newly retired from the Navy and beginning to adjust to civilian life. A discussion with some friends brings up the memories of his first ever case, and that whisks the reader back to 1999. Now, how do you keep this character consistent considering the novel opens in 2018 and then I take you back almost 20 years to when he's 27 years old? At 27 years old, he's still a big kid. He's insecure, egotistical, and yet, for being such a raving egotist, there is a lot of humility there. But that humility is fueled by insecurity, uncertainty, and even a certain level of self-hatred born of some of the things he's already been through. Come back up to 2018, when And So It Begins opens, Isaac is a raving egotist, but balanced with a humility. However, now that humility is born out of a sense of peace with himself, a sense of being able to say, I know what I'm good at, and even though I'm probably the smartest man in the room and I'm the one who's going to solve the case, I can't do it unless everybody else in this room brings their talents and abilities along for the ride. I need them as much as they need me. He knows what he's good at, he knows what he's not, and he's not afraid to own it. Even his egotism has been tempered by a sense of maturity. He can use it more now as a tool to maintain his confidence instead of just a brittle sense of, ooh, I am so special. In other words, no matter what era you meet him in, Isaac Shepard is a raving egotist tempered with humility. That's a character trait. Character traits generally don't change over time. What changes is their expression, how they're put forth to the world through the character's behavior, dialogue, and thoughts, just like in real life. If you go back to, say, 1990, when I graduated high school, I was 18 years old, tall, gawky kid, insecure, talked way too fast. Not that I don't do that now, of course, but I'm still recognizably Nathaniel Miller, just a very immature, young, and inexperienced Nathaniel Miller. Come forward to 2022, and that insecurity has largely been eroded away by experience, by the successes I've had in life, including the successes in overcoming adversity and failure. In other words, I'm still me in 1990 and 2022. How I express myself, who I am, has changed because of my maturity, because of my experience, because of the things I have been through, which is actually experience. That's an example of a character trait. Character traits are the immutable pieces of us that make us who we are. Certain character traits may be very important when you're younger, and then they kind of fade in the background and other traits come forward, but all those traits are still there. That's character consistency. It can be tricky to keep your characters consistent, especially when you're going back and doing a prequel. But tricky is not impossible. As a writer, if you're struggling with this, a good way is to do what I just talked about doing. Look at people you know. Look at yourself through your life. Look at people you know and you're close to through their lives. To borrow a line from Doctor Who, when the immortal Matt Smith was about to leave the role, he said, "We're all different people, all through our lives. And that's good, because you got to keep moving so long as you remember all the people you used to be." Study the people in your life. Study yourself and see how you behaved, how you thought, how you talked 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And then look at yourself now, but see what within you drives those behaviors. Those are your personality traits. It's the same thing for the characters you write. Charlie Brown is an indelible part of American culture because from 1955 to the year 2000, Charles Schulz drew a 4-panel comic strip every day about one of the most lovable losers in history. Now, being a loser is not a trait in Charlie Brown's personality. Believe it or not, that's not one of his personality traits if you study the character from the beginning all the way through the termination of the strip and Charles Schulz's death. He may be a loser because he's unlucky and he's got people like Lucy around him who delight in pulling that football away. But the personality traits he shows are optimism, a belief in other people. Let's start with the optimism. He's a lovable loser. He always misses the football. He loses the baseball game. He can never fly that kite. And yet one of his catchphrases for many, through that whole strip was, just wait till next year. That's an optimist. That's a character trait that stayed the same through his whole run. What changed was how he expressed it. The character was always consistent, so we always know who Charlie Brown is. You call somebody a Charlie Brown today, you're probably referring to them being rather unlucky and a loser, but you're also referring to the fact that they're an optimist who doesn't give up. That's a character trait. Audiences like consistency in their characters because we have that consistency in the people we know in real life. We have it in ourselves. There is no guarantee of success. No matter what we write, no matter what we publish, there's no guarantee we'll hit the big time and become the next James Patterson or J.K. Rowling. But we can all look in the mirror with the satisfaction that, darn it, I met that challenge and I overcame it. My writing may not have caught on, but I wrote something good. Of course, hope springs eternal, and we all do want to make it big. Let's be honest, we wouldn't be writing if we didn't have that confidence, perhaps you could say that egotism, that particular personality trait, to say what I'm writing is worth everybody else's time. Keep your characters consistent and you will increase your chances of that success because audiences want consistent characters because then they know who they are. I thank you for your time. If you didn't like this video but you stuck with it all the way through, then I do appreciate it. If you did like this video, then I'd ask you to hit that little like button down below and feel free to share it if you think it'll help another writer. Again, if you're interested in checking out And So It Begins, it's available on Amazon in ebook and print format, paperback format, excuse me. If you're interested in reading more about character consistency, you can check out my written column on my blog, sparks1524.com, and the link for that is down below in the description. I hope you have a good day. I appreciate your time, and until we meet again, remember to always go and do some great things.